Hey, Lee Robinson from American Sentinel Canine. In this video, despite looking at the kennels right now, we're actually going to talk about chain setups. There's some people that don't like kennels. We'll talk about some of the fallacies that are made about kennels. And here's some above ground kennels that we have pups in. Keeps them off the ground, keeps them away from diseases like coccidia, giardia, intestinal parasites, roundworm, hookworm, whipworm, things like that. Keeps them clean. We got some pups in there and some kennels. Nice clean facilities. They haven't even been washed in hours. You can see those little feces back there. Here's some pups. Everything's kept nice and clean. But sometimes people don't like kennels and they make statements like it's hard on the dog's joints. I've had dogs 12, 13 years old that weighed 100 pounds jumping on top of 3-foot dog houses. Never noticed any issues with any joints. But despite that, I think people have problems with kennels because they don't design them correctly. So in this video, we're going to talk about chain setups, and this is what you want to use. This is an axle out of a truck, okay? You're going to get your chain. I only use 1/4 inch or 5/16 inch high tensile strength. If the dog is less than 50 pounds, 1/4 inch is fine. I use 1/4 inch for dogs that are basically less than 45 pounds. When you get over 50 pounds, I like to graduate to a 5/16 inch chain, and I stay at high tensile strength. Doesn't matter what dog you have. That chain will pull like 2,300 pounds. Your dog's not going to bust the chain. The reason you want high tensile strength is not so much for the breaking strength. It's because it's a harder steel, and as that chain gets dragged across the ground back and forth, the dirt and sand is sanding on and grinding on that chain and wearing it thin. And we're going to be doing a little bit of maintenance here in this video, so that's the purpose of this video. And anyway, when you set your chain up, you're going to get the last link, and you're going to use an add-a-link, which is a link that has a nut on it that unscrews. You're going to put that add-a-link on the last link, wrap it around this axle hub down here below the head of the axle, and hook it onto like the third link, and then it makes a little noose or circle that this axle shaft is going to go through. And then you're going to tighten that thing up, and you tighten it down and crank it down tight. People that complain about the add-a-links getting loose are people that hand tighten them as tight as they can with a hand, but that's not how I do it. I get a heavy duty screwdriver, put it in the link, and then I get some strong pliers, and I crank that thing down to the point that I'm basically marring and gnawing the threads. It's not coming open. You're going to have to use bolt cutters to get it open. And that's how I attach my axle to it. Now the top of this axle is going to be buried in the ground. I'll go show you what it looks like. All right, so let me explain why I like to use kennels instead of chains. Kennels eliminates problems with ringworm, roundworm, hookworm. It eliminates a lot of giardia, eliminates a lot of coccidiosis, things that get in the dirt that you can't eliminate, like staph infection. Maybe if you live in Arizona or New Mexico where it's super dry, you don't have to deal with those things. But if you're in a place that has a lot of clay or sand or clay or dirt, you're going to get that stuff in the ground, and you can't bleach it out. You could till it up, put diatomaceous earth in the ground and till it up, and that'll help to some degree, but it's not going to eliminate the problem. But if you look at this dog here, you can see his collar is bound up, and that's what we're going to fix. We're going to put a new collar on him that's got a heavy duty D-ring here, because when collars age and are many years old, you'll see his collar is getting fuzzy on the backside. This is an inexpensive collar that you get at your co-op type of store, and the D-ring was not a heavy duty D-ring. It's just a standard D-ring. You can use this stuff, but it's not going to last for very long, and you have to keep an eye on it. So this collar is probably a year or two old, probably a year and a half old, maybe 2 years old. And the D-ring is starting to wear out. So he's going to graduate. This is going to be our maintenance spot. All right, we'll come back to that in a minute. And you'll notice those swivels, or those clips, are kind of bound up. Never had them get off. I'll show you why. All right, so this is Riot. Riot's top side is sorrels, and her bottom side is sorrels on the top of the bottom, and then the bottom of the bottom is going to be Red Boy Jocko Bolio Tombstone. And the bottom of the bottom of the bottom, which means the mother of the mother of the mother, is going to be Cottingham and Crenshaw, which it means some more red boy. All right, and anyway, she's a heavy sorrels dog with some Mayday stuff coming on her bottom side. This bitch is about 48 pounds and she's on a 5/16 chain, okay? That chain is really long. That's about 16 foot above ground, and then it has another foot that's in the ground. So that total chain is like 17 or 18 feet long, a little bit longer than needed. Look at the area of her circle. She's wearing it out, right? Why? Because the dogs are active when they're not on a chain that's too heavy. This allows her to stay fit and athletic, and the temperature right now is in the mid-90s. When you put them on a 5-foot chain, they can't get any exercise. And if you put them on a heavy 5-foot chain, they don't even want to exercise because they're carrying that chain everywhere they move. You put them on a lighter weight chain, use high tensile strength. A 1/4 inch is fine when you're dealing with a dog this size or smaller. But when you go bigger than this, you need to go with 5/16. Okay? Let's check out Boomer over here. Boomer is a very heavy sorrels dog. He's 7/8 sorrels. Come on, boy. Like I said, it's 95 degrees out. This dog weighs 56 pounds, maybe 58. He's mature and he's very active. You can see he runs around and keeps the stuff from growing in here. He's got 2 buckets of fresh water over there. She has fresh water over by her doghouse. He has a concrete bowl with water in it, okay? He has a concrete bowl because he likes to knock over the bowl. Now, notice the clips. I have 2 of them on there. We'll talk about that swivel also. Now, this is a 5/16 chain also. This is Dolly. Dolly is about 65 pounds. She's absolutely de-limbed this whole bush. This bush had completely covered the doghouse and was all shade. She's broken you can see all kinds of broken limbs up in there. And she tore down a bunch of limbs that are not even in there anymore, that we've thrown into the woods and chopped up and hauled off. But it is what it is. And look how active, you know, very active. And it's 95 degrees out and she's moving around. Don't have a super heavy chain. I think that one over there is 5/16 and this one over here is 5/16. Now that dog right there, he's every bit of 80 pounds. I'm talking about this one right here. He's every bit of 80 pounds and he's on a 5/16 chain. She's 48 pounds and she's on a 5/16 chain. I shouldn't even have 3/8 anymore, but sometimes you deal with what you got. Never do I use a super short chain. I like my dogs to be active. Now this chain here is a 1/4 inch, okay? This one's not in use. I'm gonna show you a couple of things about this here. Now you'll notice there's an add-a-link there. Let's zoom out. An add-a-link there and an add-a-link here. Why? Why do I have 2 add-a-links in it? Well, as I said, as these dogs move, they sand on that chain. Well, the part that gets sanded is the outer 2/3, especially the outer third. The second third is usually not so bad, but the inner third is usually not damaged at all because it doesn't move near as much. So look at how she's moving. The inner third of that chain is not moving much. Hey, Dolly. So it doesn't move near as much as the outer parts. So the outer 2/3 of the chain is what wears out. And so that means the inner third tends to last much longer. So what this is 3 chains with the inner third, inner third, inner third, inner third. And then we use an add-a-link to join them together to get another chain. And so we just buy a couple of add-a-links, but you got to crank them down hard. If you don't crank them down hard, they'll open up on you and then the dog gets loose and you're going to blame the add-a-link when the problem was you, not the add-a-link. Crank them down hard and you'll notice there's 2 add-a-links right there. Why is that? Well, that's because couldn't get that one off. Okay, this was the inner third on another chain that was like this. So when this gets old, that third there, let me zoom out. When this gets old, this third here is still going to be good. That's what that is from. That's the inner third of an old one. And the add-a-link, you can't open it. You can't turn it because it was pushed on really hard and now it's rusted in the locked position. If you just turn them by hand or even with a pair of pliers, but don't crank them down hard, they'll come open for you. You'll get a loose dog. You got to put them super tight. Okay, then they don't go anywhere. All right. Now, next, on your swivel, you want the nut on the chain side, not the dog side. This is where the dog goes. This is where the chain goes. You want the nut on the swivel on the chain side, because it's just a single thing through there, and it's not going to bind on that nut. That's the swivel. You don't want that nut to get bound up. When you put a bunch of stuff over here, it's going to bind up and lock that nut up, and then your swivel's not going to work. Then as the dog turns circles, that chain is going to bind as it's getting twisted because it's not swiveling. When it binds up, that's going to shorten it up and lock the dog up where it can't reach its water bowl and doghouse. And then here you'll see we have two of these. Now this one hasn't been used in a long time, so it's rusted. But notice, every single dog out here, one side opens one way and the other side opens on the other way. That way, these are supported by each other. You can't open it when it's like this because they're supported by each other. Now, if you really push on it, you can open them, but guess what? The D-ring on the dog is between here, so it can't get out. It can't get out because this cannot get pushed in past that, okay? So the dog can't unbuckle itself. I've never in 26 years had a dog get off of this. However, if you don't like these, you can use cold shuts and big O-rings or independent D-rings and slide the O-ring and D-ring on the collar, and you can cold shut that D-ring or O-ring onto your swivel, okay? So that way you don't even have a clip. But we train dogs here, and since I train dogs, I like to be able to get them off the clip. So that's why I use those. If you use just one of these, your dog's gonna get loose. Don't use one. You have to use two, and you need to have them go opposite directions. And that's what we're gonna deal with on the first dog I showed you today. So as it's been on there for a long time, he's worn out the cheap D-ring on that cheap collar, and the D-ring has also, and the clips have gotten into a little bit of bind. That's probably something I'm gonna be able to shake out. We'll see as I go over there to try to adjust it. I'll probably be able to shake those clips back into a normal, easy to deal with position. But then we're gonna replace this collar with a heavy grit and steel D-ring, because you ain't wearing that out in any time soon. This here will last as long as that chain. All right, so let me set this down and get those collars swapped out for him. All right, so we got him swapped out, and this is what I'm talking about. So here's the old ring, and you can see that it's wearing thin. You have to watch this kind of stuff when you're dealing with a cheap collar. If you're an absent-minded owner, this is gonna give you a problem, all right? So even though, I don't care if you are using a grit and steel collar, which is a great collar, one of the best made, you still need to look at your stuff and inspect your hardware, all right? He had a horsefly chasing him. It's, like I said, it's 95 degrees out here. But Cobalt's looking good. Got his nice grit and steel collar on. And that's a used collar. It's not the first time it's been on a dog, okay? Okay. So there you go. Maintenance done. Check your chains. Make sure it's not getting worn out. Check your swivels. If you don't want to use those quick links like what I have where I can do stuff like this, use cold shut if you want to, okay? Don't use add a link without cranking it down tight. Like I said, you have to get a heavy duty screwdriver and a heavy duty pair of pliers and really crank that thing so much that the add-a-links usually have like a raised area that's larger than the link and larger than the threads that stops the nut as you screw it on. Guess what? I crank that thing up so it goes over and grinds into that stop on the threads and goes over that raised point a little bit, which completely locks it in, and it's rusted in. It's permanent. You have to use bolt cutters to get them off if you do that. So it works fine. Anyway, that's Cobalt. ASC's Cobalt. He's about 80 pounds, and like I said, he's on a 5/16. Let me look at it. That's 5/8. I mean 5/16. That's 5/16. This is 5/16. And actually, that's 5/16. I've looked at them now. That's 5/16. And that one over there that was old was a quarter. And that's why we had to put them together. There's no need to go any stronger than that. That chain will pull down that tree, okay? You don't need a heavier chain than that. People that go heavier than that are idiots. Let your dogs get some exercise. Let them move around a little bit. Don't weigh them down with a super heavy chain where the dog can't even move. All of these dogs, you can see how much room each one has. Plenty of exercise. They all have fresh water. They all have shelter. Y'all take care and have a blessed day.